Cole had been a prisoner for 11 months. Each day felt the same as the one before. Wake up in a small metal room, eat food that tasted like wet cardboard, work until his muscles screamed, sleep, repeat. They had captured him during what was supposed to be a peaceful mission. Earth had sent a small team to Nexus Station to meet with alien species for the first time. Was there as security. He never fired a single shot. They simply surrounded them, took their weapons, and separated them like cattle at a market. That was 11 months ago. Had no idea if the others from his team were still alive. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. They stood 7 to 8 feet tall, with bodies covered in hard shells that shimmered like precious gems. Their faces had large compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy and slow. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for thousands of years, building an empire while humans were still learning to make fire. To the humans were nothing special. The Galactic Council had given humanity a rating of Tier 7, which was almost the lowest possible. It meant that humans were considered primitive, weak, and unimportant. Other aliens looked at humans and saw soft skin that could be cut easily, bodies that broke down after only 80 years, and minds that could not speak through thoughts like many species could. Understood why they thought this way. Compared to most aliens, humans did seem pathetic. They had no natural armor, no claws or fangs worth mentioning, no special abilities, just soft flesh and fragile bones wrapped around organs that could fail for 100 different reasons. So did what any smart prisoner would do. He kept his head down, he worked hard, he watched, he listened, he learned. The ship he was on was called the Eternal Radiance. It was a royal cruiser, which meant it carried someone very important. Learned from whispered conversations and careful observation that the Queen herself was aboard. Her name was Sovereign the Undying, and she had ruled her people for over 300 years. The other prisoners spoke her name with fear and respect. The Queen was traveling with her only child, a young princess named. Had seen the little princess once from a distance when she walked through the lower decks with her guards. She was small for a maybe 4 feet tall, with a shell that had not fully hardened yet. Her compound eyes had looked around with curiosity at everything, including the prisoners working nearby. For just a moment her eyes had met his. Had looked away quickly. Making eye contact with royalty was probably some kind of crime. The ship was heading to something called the Conclave of Crowns. From what could understand, it was a massive meeting where the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy would gather. They would make deals, draw borders, and decide the fate of countless worlds. It happened once every 100 years, and it was the most important political event in known space. Did not care about politics. He cared about survival. He had learned which guards were cruel and which ones simply did their jobs. He knew which maintenance tunnels were rarely checked. He had memorized the schedules, the shift changes, the patterns of daily life on the ship. He was not planning an escape. There was nowhere to escape to. He was millions of light years from Earth, on a ship filled with beings who could crush him without effort, but knowing things made him feel less helpless. Information was the only power a prisoner had. At night, when the lights dimmed and the ship grew quiet, would lie on his thin mattress and think about home. He thought about blue skies and green grass. He thought about the smell of coffee in the morning and the sound of rain on a window. He thought about his daughter, who had been 7 years old when he left Earth. She would be 8 now. She probably thought he was dead. Closed his eyes and pictured her face. Brown hair that never stayed in its ponytail, a gap-toothed smile. The way she used to run to him when he came home from work, shouting "Daddy" at the top of her lungs. He had promised her he would come back. He had knelt down, looked into her eyes and promised. Now he was a slave on an alien ship, cleaning carbon scoring from plasma conduits, and nobody in the galaxy even knew his name. The other prisoners left alone for the most part. There were about 50 of them from various species, all considered too primitive or too weak to be useful for anything except manual labor. A few had tried to talk to him in the early days, curious about the strange new species from the spiral arm, but had not been interested in making friends. Friends were weaknesses. Friends could be used against you. So he worked, he survived, he waited for something though he did not know what. On the 332nd day of his captivity, was assigned to clean a section of corridor near the royal quarters. It was unusual duty for a prisoner of his low status. The guard who gave him the assignment seemed annoyed about it, muttering something about being short-staffed. Took his cleaning supplies and walked to the designated area. The corridors here were wider and more beautiful than the lower decks. The walls were decorated with patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living things. The air smelled cleaner. He worked slowly and carefully, keeping his eyes on his task. But he noticed things. He noticed how many guards were posted at each doorway. He noticed the security panels and their blinking lights. He noticed the faint sound of a child's voice coming from behind one of the doors, speaking in the musical language of the princess was in there, just a few meters away. Felt nothing special about this. She was an alien child royalty of a species that had enslaved him. Her problems were not his problems. Her life had nothing to do with his. He finished his work and returned to the lower decks without incident. That night, as he lay on his mattress, did not know that everything was about to change. He did not know that in less than 12 hours, he would face a choice that would alter the course of galactic history. He did not know that his name would soon be spoken in royal courts and council chambers across the stars. He was just a prisoner, a human, a member of a worthless species. He closed his eyes and dreamed of his daughter's smile. The explosion woke from a dreamless sleep. The entire ship shook like a giant had grabbed it and squeezed, was thrown from his mattress onto the cold metal floor. Red emergency lights started flashing. Alarms screamed so loud that he could feel them in his chest. For a moment just lay there, his heart pounding, his mind trying to understand what was happening. Then his military training took over. He pushed himself up and moved to the corner of his cell, away from the door, putting his back against the wall. The artificial gravity flickered. For 2 terrifying seconds felt himself starting to float. Then it came back, slamming him down to his knees. Through the walls he could hear shouting, running footsteps, more explosions smaller than the first but closer. Then he heard something that made his blood turn to ice. Weapons fire, the sharp crack of energy weapons discharging, and it was coming from above, from the direction of the royal quarters. Knew he should stay where he was. The protocol for prisoners during emergencies was simple. Stay in your cell, do not move, wait for instructions. Anyone found outside their assigned area during a crisis would be killed on sight. They did not ask questions first. But the weapon's fire kept coming, and mixed with it, muffled by distance and walls, thought he heard screaming. He thought about the little princess he had seen in the corridor, 4 feet tall, soft shell, curious eyes. He thought about. Before he knew what he was doing was at the door of his cell. The lock had malfunctioned during the explosion, the magnetic seal flickering on and off. He waited for the right moment, then pushed. The door slid open. The corridor outside was chaos. Smoke filled the air. Other prisoners were shouting from their cells, pounding on doors that had not malfunctioned. A body lay on the floor nearby, a guard with a hole burned through his beautiful shell. Did not stop to think. He started running toward the sound of weapons fire. He had no weapon, no armor, no plan. He was wearing thin prisoner clothes and soft shoes. Every logical part of his brain was screaming at him to turn back, to hide, to survive. But there was something else in Cole. Something that did not listen to logic. Something that had been built into humans over millions of years of evolution, forged in the fires of a harsh and dangerous world. When a child was in danger, you did not think, you acted. He ran through corridors filled with smoke and emergency lighting. He passed more bodies, more destruction. The ship had been badly damaged by whatever had caused the initial explosion. Systems were failing all around him. The weapon's fire grew louder. He was getting close. Turned a corner and found himself at the entrance to the royal wing. The doors had been blown open. Beyond them lay a scene of horror. Guards were scattered across the floor like broken dolls. Their shells had been cracked open, and luminescent blue blood pooled around their bodies. They had died fighting, their weapons still in their hands, but they had not been enough. 3 figures moved through the carnage. They were a serpentine species known throughout the galaxy as mercenaries and assassins. Their bodies were long and flexible, covered in scales as black as empty space. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that did not recognize but knew were deadly. And in the far corner of the room, pressed against the wall with nowhere to run, was the princess. Was alone. Her personal guards lay dead around her. Her small body was trembling. Her compound eyes, so much larger on her young face, were wide with pure terror. The lead raised his weapon and pointed it at the child. Did not remember deciding to move. One moment he was at the doorway. The next he was running, his legs pumping harder than they ever had in his life, crossing the distance between himself and the princess in 3 desperate seconds. He threw himself in front of her just as the weapon fired. The energy blast hit in the shoulder and chest. It felt like being struck by lightning and fire at the same time. His body jerked. His vision went white. Every nerve in his body screamed with agony beyond anything he had ever experienced. He should have died. The guard, strong and armored, had died from single shots, was soft and unprotected. But he did not die. He stayed on his feet. The assassin hesitated, confused. No one should have survived that shot. No one had ever survived that shot. That hesitation cost him his life. Grabbed the barrel of the rifle with his left hand, the metal burning into his palm. He did not feel the pain, not really. There was too much pain already for any single part of it to matter. He yanked the weapon to the side and swung his right fist into the throat. The punch was not elegant or trained. It was brutal and desperate and filled with every ounce of strength had left. He felt cartilage collapse under his knuckles. The assassin made a wet choking sound and crumpled. The second was already moving, a curved blade in its hand. The blade punched into his side, sliding between his ribs. It should have severed his spine, but human spines are flexible in ways that most species are not. The blade scraped a long bone instead of through it. Head-butted the assassin. It was a stupid move, something no trained fighter would do, but was not thinking about training. He was thinking about the child behind him, the child he could hear crying, the child who sounded so much like when she was scared. His forehead connected with the skull with a crack that echoed through the room. The assassin dropped, dazed, stomped on its neck before it could recover. The third assassin was running. It had seen enough. Whatever these humans were, it wanted no part of them. Bent down and picked up a ceremonial blade from one of the fallen guards. It was not designed for throwing. It was too heavy on one end, too light on the other, decorated with gems and gold that served no purpose. He threw it anyway. The blade spun through the air and buried itself in the assassin's back. The fell and did not get up. For a long moment, everything was quiet except for the alarms and the sound of breathing, which came in wet, ragged gasps. He looked down at himself. His prisoner clothes were soaked with blood, so much blood that he could not tell where it was all coming from. His legs gave out. He collapsed onto the floor, his body finally surrendering to the damage it had taken. The world was growing dark around the edges. He could feel his heart struggling to pump blood that was no longer there. But before the darkness took him, he felt something. Small hands on his chest. A child's voice, speaking words he did not understand but in a tone he recognized. "Do not die, please do not die. You saved me, please do not die." Wanted to tell her it was okay. He wanted to tell her not to be scared. He wanted to tell her that he had a daughter too, somewhere far away, and that protecting children was what fathers did. But he could not speak. He could only lie there as his blood spread across the floor, red mixing with blue, human mixing with. When Queen finally broke through the security doors, she found her daughter kneeling beside the dying human, her small claws pressed against his wounds, trying desperately to hold his life inside his broken body. And for the first time in 300 years, the undying Queen did not know what to say. The medical bay of the Eternal Radiance had never treated a human before. No one on the ship had ever even seen a human until Cole arrived as a prisoner 11 months ago. Now the best doctors in the Dominion were fighting to save his life, and they had no idea what they were doing. Queen watched through the observation window as her medical team worked. The human lay on a table designed for bodies, far too large for his small frame. Machines beeped and hummed. Blue-skinned doctors moved with urgent precision, speaking to each other in rapid medical terminology. Her daughter stood beside her, refusing to leave. Had not spoken since the guards had gently pulled her away from the human's body. Her claws were still stained with his red blood. She had not let anyone clean them. She just stood and watched, her young eyes fixed on the dying creature who had saved her life. One of the doctors approached the observation window. His name was, and he was the finest surgeon in the royal fleet. His compound eyes were troubled. "Your Radiance," he said through the communication panel, "I must be honest with you. I do not know if we can save this creature." "Explain," the Queen commanded. "His physiology is unlike anything in our databases. His blood does not carry oxygen the same way ours does. His organs are arranged differently than we expected. We have had to guess at almost every procedure." Paused. "But that is not what troubles me most." "What troubles you?" "He should already be dead, Your Radiance. The wounds he sustained would have killed any species we know of. The disruptor blast alone should have stopped his heart instantly. Instead, he remained standing. He fought. He killed 3 assassins after taking damage that would have dropped a warrior in full armor." The Queen said nothing. She waited. "We have been studying his body as we work," continued, "and we have found things that make no sense. His muscles contain a chemical that allows them to continue functioning even when starved of oxygen. His bones are flexible rather than rigid, which is why the blade did not sever his spine. His brain produces compounds that block pain signals during moments of extreme stress." "Natural adaptations," the Queen said slowly, "for survival." "Yes, but there is more. His body has already begun healing itself. Without any intervention from us, his tissue is regenerating. Slowly, but it is happening. His immune system is fighting off infections that should have killed him hours ago. Every part of him seems designed to survive damage that would be fatal to any other species." Spoke for the first time since the attack. Her voice was small but steady. "He would not stop," she said. "The assassins shot him and he would not stop. They stabbed him and he would not stop. He just kept fighting. He kept standing between them and me." The Queen looked down at her daughter. The princess's shell was still soft in places, still vulnerable. In a few more years she would complete her final molt and emerge in her adult form. But right now, she was still a child. A child who had watched 3 assassins die in front of her, killed by a creature everyone in the galaxy considered worthless. "Why did he do it?" asked. "He does not know me, I am not his species, I am not even from his part of space. Why would he die for me?" The Queen did not have an answer. Inside the medical bay, Cole's heart stopped for the 3rd time. The doctors rushed to restart it. For a moment, everything was chaos and shouting, and the high whine of machines pushed beyond their limits. Then the heart began beating again. looked at the observation window and shook his head slowly, not in defeat but in disbelief. "He will not give up," the doctor said. "His body simply refuses to die." The Queen turned to one of her advisors, a thin named who served as her intelligence officer. "I want everything we have on this species. Everything. Their history, their biology, their culture. I want to understand what we are dealing with." "Bode, your Radiance, our files on humans are minimal. They are a Tier 7 civilization. The Galactic Council has classified them as primitive and unremarkable. There is very little information because no one considered them worth studying." "That was a mistake," the Queen said. "A serious mistake. Find out everything you can. I do not care how long it takes or what resources you need." "Yes, your Radiance." For 6 days, drifted between life and death. His heart stopped 7 more times. Each time the doctors brought him back. Each time his body fought harder to survive. On the 4th day, came to the Queen with a thick report. "I have completed my analysis of the human's biology," he said. "What I have found is remarkable, and I must admit, somewhat terrifying." The Queen took the report but did not open it. "Tell me." "Humans evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill them. Their planet had extreme temperature variations, natural disasters, predators, diseases, and limited resources. Any other species would have gone extinct. Humans did not. They adapted. Many species adapt to harsh environments. Not like this." His voice held something the Queen had never heard from him before. Humans do not have a single impressive trait. They are not the strongest or the fastest but they have something else. They have endurance. They can chase prey for days without rest. They can survive injuries that would kill anything else. They can eat almost anything, live in almost any climate, and recover from almost any trauma." He paused. "And they have one more thing, something I do not fully understand. They form bonds of loyalty and protection that extend beyond their own families, their own tribes, even their own species. This human had no logical reason to protect your daughter. She was not his child. She was not even his kind. But he did it anyway." "Why?" "I do not know, your Radiance, but I believe it is connected to how humans survived on their harsh world. They learned that cooperation, that protecting each other, was more important than individual strength. And somehow, that instinct extends to others, even to aliens they have never met." On the 6th day, Cole opened his eyes. He woke to softness. The surface beneath him was gentle in a way nothing had been for 11 months. The light was dim and warm. The air smelled clean and sweet. For a long moment, he just lay there, trying to remember where he was and how he had gotten here. His body ached in a deep, distant way, like the pain was happening to someone else. Then the memories came back. The explosion, the alarms, the running, the princess in the corner, the assassins raising their weapons, the desperate sprint across the room. The feeling of energy burning through his chest. Tried to sit up and failed. His body was too weak, but he managed to turn his head, and what he saw made no sense. He was in a room fit for royalty. The ceiling above him was made of crystal, and through it he could see stars. The walls were decorated with flowing patterns that seemed to pulse with soft light. Everything around him spoke of wealth and power beyond anything he had experienced in his entire life. This was not a medical bay. This was not a prisoner's cell. This was somewhere he did not belong. A door opened and someone entered. His vision was blurry, but he could make out a tall figure, graceful and shimmering. Queen the Undying sat down beside his bed and looked at him with compound eyes that had seen 3 centuries of history. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was like wind chimes. "Good, we have much to discuss." Tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. The Queen gestured, and a servant appeared with water. Cool liquid touched his lips, and he drank gratefully. "Where am I?" he managed to croak. "You are in the royal guest quarters," the Queen replied. You have been unconscious for 6 days. My doctors were not certain you would survive. They still do not understand how you survived. Closed his eyes. 6 days. In 6 days, anything could have happened. The ship could have reached its destination. Earth could have been destroyed. His daughter could have grown a week older without him. The princess, he said, is she safe? Something changed in the queen's expression. It was subtle, a slight shift in the angle of her head, but noticed it. My daughter is unharmed, she said, because of you, and that coal is why we need to talk. Stared at the queen and tried to understand what was happening. His mind was still foggy from 6 days of unconsciousness, and nothing about this situation made sense. He was a prisoner. He was human. He should be back in his cell, or dead, or facing punishment for leaving his assigned area during an emergency. Instead, he was lying in a bed softer than clouds, while the ruler of an interstellar empire sat beside him. You confuse me, human, Queen said. Her large compound eyes studied him like he was a puzzle she could not solve. I have read the reports about your species. My advisors tell me that humans have no combat specialization. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no telepathy, no regenerative abilities that would explain what you did. Said nothing. He was not sure what he was supposed to say. They also tell me that humans have no pack bonding instincts that would extend to other species. No biological imperative that would drive you to sacrifice yourself for a child not your own. No logical reason to do what you did. She leaned closer and could see his own reflection in her eyes, distorted and strange. And yet you did it anyway. You ran toward danger instead of away from it. You took wounds that should have killed you. You kept fighting after any reasonable creature would have collapsed. You protected my daughter with your own body when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. She paused. Why? Thought about the question. He thought about the moment when he heard the weapons fire and started running. He thought about seeing the little princess in the corner, small and terrified and alone. I do not know, he said honestly. I saw a child in danger. I moved. I did not think about it. That is precisely what confuses me. Every other species thinks. Every other species calculates risk and reward. Every other species considers their own survival before acting. The queen's head tilted slightly. Humans apparently do not. We do sometimes, but not always, not when it matters. What do you mean? Try to find the right words. Back on Earth we have a saying, blood is thicker than water. It means family comes first, but humans, we have a strange definition of family. It is not just about blood. It is about choice, about who we decide to protect. He paused, gathering his strength. I have a daughter. Her name is, she is 8 years old now, I think. I left her 11 months ago when I was captured. Every day since then I have thought about her. I have dreamed about her. I have wished that I could see her again. And my daughter reminded you of her. Not exactly. Your daughter does not look anything like, she is not even the same species. But when I saw her in that corner, scared and alone with those assassins pointing their weapons at her, I did not see a princess. I just saw a child who needed help. Met the queen's eyes. Where I come from, you do not let children die, not if you can stop it, not ever. I do not care what species they are. A child is a child. The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the crystal window, looking out at the stars. You have created a problem for me, Cole, she said. A complicated problem that I am still deciding how to solve. I apologize for any inconvenience. The queen made a sound that might have been a laugh. You humans, even half-dead, you make jokes. She turned back to face him. The problem is this, by law what you did has consequences. When someone performs a show, an act of protection so profound that they sacrifice their own body to shield another, it creates an unbreakable bond. You shielded my heir with your flesh. You took wounds meant for her. That makes you family. Blinked, I am sorry, what? It is an ancient tradition. from the time before we had ships or technology or empires, when the world was dangerous and every protector was precious. Anyone who proved their loyalty through sacrifice was welcomed into the family they protected. It was how our ancestors survived. She returned to her seat beside his bed. The tradition has been rarely invoked in the modern age, but it has never been forgotten, and my daughter has already completed the claiming ritual. Your daughter did what? While you were unconscious, performed the ceremony of Eth. She named you her protector, her guardian, her sworn defender. She spoke the words in front of witnesses. The bond is now recognized by every major civilization in the conclave. Tried to process this information. She claimed me like property. Not like property, like family. There is an important difference. The queen's mandibles clicked, which had learned was a sign of amusement. You now belong to the royal house of, you have the rights and protections of royal blood. No one may harm you without answering to me. I was your prisoner yesterday. You were, now you are my daughter's Eth, her guardian knight, her protector until death. The queen paused. My advisors are very confused by this development. Some of them think I should void the claiming on the grounds that humans are too primitive for such an honor, but I have decided not to. Why? The queen leaned forward. Because I watched the security recordings, Cole. I watched you run through smoke and fire toward danger that would have made my bravest soldiers hesitate. I watched you throw yourself in front of a disruptor blast with nothing but your soft human body as a shield. I watched you kill 3 assassins while bleeding to death, using nothing but your hands and your refusal to fall. Her voice grew softer. The galaxy thinks your species is worthless. The Galactic Council rated humanity as barely worth noticing. But I have seen what one human can do when someone he chooses to protect is threatened. I am beginning to suspect that the galaxy is very, very wrong. Before could respond, the door opened again. A small figure rushed in, moving faster than had ever seen a move. Princess crossed the room in seconds and stopped beside his bed, her compound eyes bright with emotion. You are awake, she said. Her voice was young and musical. I was so worried. I came every day to see you. The doctors kept saying they did not know if you would survive. Princess, the queen said, a gentle warning in her tone. It is all right, said. He looked at the young princess who had apparently claimed him as family. She was so small, her shell still soft in places, her eyes still holding the innocence of youth. Thank you for coming to see me, and thank you for claiming me, I suppose, even though I do not fully understand what that means. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of happiness in her species. It means you are mine now. You are my Eth, my protector, my family. She reached out and touched his hand with her small claws, gentle and careful. It means I will never forget what you did for me, and it means I will protect you too as much as I can. Looked at this alien child who had just declared him part of her family. He thought about millions of light years away. He thought about the daughter he might never see again. And he felt something warm in his chest that had nothing to do with his healing wounds. I am honored, Princess, he said, truly. The queen watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. When looked up at her, she nodded slowly. Rest now, Cole. Recover your strength. The conclave of crowns begins in 3 days, and you will be attending with us. The galaxy is about to learn that humans are not the worthless species they believed. She stood and moved toward the door, then paused. My daughter chose well, she said. I am beginning to believe that humans may be the most dangerous species any of us have ever encountered, not because of your weapons or your ships or your technology, but because of your hearts, because of your impossible, irrational willingness to die for those you choose to protect. She looked back at him one more time. The galaxy has never seen anything like you, and I suspect that before this is over, they will learn to fear what that means. She left and lay in his soft bed beneath the crystal ceiling, watching the stars drift past. He was no longer a prisoner. He was no longer alone. He was family. And for the first time in 11 months, Cole allowed himself to hope. The conclave of crowns was held on a space station the size of a small moon. It hung in the void between stars, neutral territory where the 14 great powers of the galaxy could meet without fear of attack. Ships of every design surrounded it, elegant cruisers, massive warships, strange vessels from species had never seen. This was the most important political gathering in known space. It happened once every 100 years, and Cole, former prisoner and current royal guardian, was about to walk into it. He stood before a mirror in his quarters aboard the Eternal Radiance, still not quite believing what he saw. Gone were the thin prisoner clothes. In their place was the formal armor of a guardian knight of the royal house. The armor was dark blue with golden trim, designed to fit his human body perfectly. A ceremonial blade hung at his hip, the same blade he had thrown into an assassin's back. Princess had insisted he keep it. "You earned it," she had said. "It is yours now." The scars were still visible on his face and hands. The doctors had offered to remove them but had refused. Scars told a story, and he wanted the galaxy to see what he had survived. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find the Queen and Princess waiting for him. Queen looked magnificent in her formal regalia. Her shell gleamed like a rainbow captured in crystal. Her spiral horns were decorated with gems that pulsed with inner light. She was every inch the ruler of an interstellar empire. Stood beside her mother, smaller but just as elegant. The princess had changed since the attack. There was a new steadiness in her eyes, a maturity that had not been there before. Watching 3 assassins die and nearly dying herself had aged her in ways that could not be measured in years. "Are you ready?" the Queen asked. Took a deep breath. "No, but I will do it anyway." The Queen's mandibles clicked with amusement, a very human response. They walked together through the corridors of the ship, then across the docking bridge to the station itself. Felt eyes on him from the moment he entered. The station was filled with beings from across the galaxy, and they all stared at the strange creature walking beside the royalty. Whispers followed them like a shadow. "Is that a human? What is it doing with the Queen? I thought humans were primitive. Why is it wearing armor?" Kept his head high and his expression calm. He had faced worse than whispers. The great hall of the conclave was a massive chamber at the heart of the station. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. Its walls were lined with the banners of the 14 sovereign powers. Representatives from every major civilization filled the room, standing in carefully arranged groups, eyeing each other with ancient rivalries and careful diplomacy. When Queen entered with a human at her side, silence spread across the hall like a wave. Could feel the weight of countless eyes upon him. Beings who had ruled empires when humanity was still living in caves looked at him with curiosity, confusion, and contempt. He was a primitive, an animal, a pet at best. He met their gazes and did not look away. The delegation stood near the center of the room. Their ambassador was a massive serpent named, covered in scales that shifted from black to purple in the light. He smiled when he saw the Queen approach, showing far too many teeth. "Your Radiance," said, his voice smooth as oil. "I see you have brought your pet. How charming. I did not realize the conclave allowed animals in the Great Hall." Felt the Queen tense beside him, but before she could respond, Princess stepped forward. She was small compared to everyone else in the room. Her shell was still soft in places. By any measure, she should have been insignificant. But when she spoke, her voice carried across the entire hall. "He is not a pet," she said. "He is Ev. He is my guardian, sworn and claimed by ancient law, and he killed 3 of your assassins with his bare hands while bleeding to death. He is more warrior than anyone in your delegation." The silence that followed was absolute. Every being in the hall heard her words. Every being saw her standing before the ambassador, tiny and unafraid. Smile faltered. "Princess, I have no idea what you are talking about. The Confederation would never." "Do not lie to me." His voice was cold. "I was there. I watched your assassins murder my guards. I watched them point their weapons at me. And I watched this human run through fire to save my life while your hired killers tried to end it." Queen stepped forward and placed a gentle claw on her daughter's shoulder. Then she addressed the entire assembly. "The Dominion formally registers a complaint against the Confederation for the attempted assassination of my heir. The evidence is complete and undeniable. The perpetrators are dead, killed by the human Cole, who I have accepted into my house as protector to the Crown Princess." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Let this serve as notice to the galaxy. Humanity is under the protection of the Dominion. Any who threaten them threaten us. Any who dismiss them do so at their own risk." Her compound eyes swept across the hall, meeting the gazes of ambassadors and rulers from every corner of known space. "We have seen what one human can do when someone he chooses to protect is in danger. One human, unarmed and unarmored, against 3 trained assassins. One human, soft and fragile by your standards, who refused to die until his work was done." Her mandibles clicked slowly. "I find myself curious to see what an entire species of them might accomplish." The murmuring that spread through the hall was not entirely from disbelief anymore. Could see beings looking at him with new eyes, reassessing everything they thought they knew. The conclave continued for 3 more days. Treaties were signed. Borders were drawn. Ancient disputes were settled or postponed for another century. Stood at his place beside the princess through all of it, watching and learning. On the final night, after the formal ceremonies had ended and the delegates had retired to their quarters, found standing at a viewport, looking out at the stars. "You are thinking about your people," she said. It was not a question. "Yes." His hand rested on the blade at his hip. "All the other humans out there, still being dismissed, still being called worthless, still being captured and enslaved because no one thinks we matter. They will not be dismissed for long." The princess came to stand beside him, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "My mother keeps her promises, and I keep mine. You protected me, Cole. Now my house will protect your entire species." She looked up at him with her large compound eyes. "We are family now. Your people are my people. Your enemies are my enemies. The Dominion will stand with humanity until the stars themselves grow cold." He thought about Earth. He thought about all the humans scattered across the galaxy, alone and afraid and waiting for something to change. "The Galactic Council will not be happy about this," he said. "They rated us Tier 7. They decided we were worthless. The Galactic Council is full of fools who judge species by their bodies instead of their spirits." His voice held an edge that made her sound older than her years. "They looked at humans and saw soft skin and short lives and no natural weapons. They never thought to look deeper. They never wondered why a species with no claws or fangs or armor managed to become the dominant form of life on their world." She turned to face him directly. "I know why now. I watched you run toward death to save a child you did not know. I watched you fight after any other being would have died. I watched you refuse to give up when every logical calculation said you were finished." Her small claw found his hand. "Humans are not weak. You are the strongest species in the galaxy, not in your bodies but in your hearts, in your refusal to accept defeat, in your willingness to protect those you love, no matter the cost." Felt tears forming in his eyes. He had not cried in 11 months. He had not allowed himself that weakness. Now, standing beside an alien princess who had claimed him as family, he let them fall. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for showing me what to see." They stood together at the viewport, human and guardian and princess, watching the stars that now held a different meaning than they had before. somewhere out there, was looking at a sky that might one day hold ships from a galactic empire, coming not as conquerors but as allies. Somewhere out there, humans were waking up to a universe that had finally noticed them. The galaxy had called them worthless. The galaxy had been wrong. And now, for the first time in history, humanity had a chance to show the stars what they were truly made of. Not muscle or armor or weapons, but heart, courage, and an impossible, irrational refusal to ever give up. Cole smiled through his tears and held tight to the small alien hand in his. The future had never looked so bright.